2019 NBA season was a very interesting one, especially when it came to Kawhi Leonard. As y'all know, that season before, Kawhi Leonard was on the Spurs, and he only played in really a handful of games that year, and it was just drama the entire season around Kawhi Leonard and his injury. Spurs players like Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, everybody was complaining about Kawhi Leonard and his time off because, many of those guys were older and they were making their final run on that team, and Kawhi, he wasn't a no-show. And he missed pretty much the entire season, just a handful of games. And, many people did not like that and what he did. So it was only a matter of time until Kawhi Leonard was going to be traded. And as we all know, he got traded to Toronto Raptors for DeMar DeRozan. And when you look back at this trade as well, and of course, Danny Green was in that trade as well. But when you look back at this trade really was one of the greatest finesses in NBA history, because the Raptors essentially got a guy, who they did bet on and only stayed for one season there. But you got a guy who is considered one of the greatest players to possibly play the game, which is a big statement saying for Kawhi Leonard. But Kawhi Leonard came in there that year, and he really did transform that Toronto Raptors team in just his one season there. Compare that to the Kawhi Leonard who we see today, who is still a great player. The Kawhi Leonard we saw in the 2019 NBA season was something special. It was a redemption tour for Kawhi Leonard after especially all the hate that was placed on him the prior season. Coming into this season, Kawhi Leonard had a mission in mind, and that was to help this Raptors team become really one of the best teams in basketball. And when you really look at this year in general, Kawhi Leonard, he just really did make a name for himself. I mean, he first off with the laugh.
I don't even know where you're sitting at.
We cannot forget about that iconic laugh that he made. Been signed with New Balance that year, which is really interesting. And of course, he transformed this Toronto Raptors team. And, we can all talk about the regular season and how amazing that was for the Toronto Raptors. And I mean, when you look at how their roster was even built up, I remember when this trade happened, and I was like, whoa, this Raptors team is going to be really scary, because when you look at them on paper, that last prior season, the Toronto Raptors had one of the greatest seasons in their franchise's history. If you look at them on paper, they are a really good team, and really all they did was traded away DeMar DeRozan and dropped in Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, which was something just insane. And I mean, the Raptors that season in general, they had the greatest season in their franchise's history, but they failed to live up to the expectations that were placed on them because they got eliminated once again by LeBron James, who just dominated on the Raptors during his time there. But he, as we all know, he moved on to the Lakers during this time, and it was a wide open opportunity now in the Eastern Conference and for the Raptors to really make it big. And as you all know, during this time, the Celtics are still really good. The 76ers are really good. The Bucks had the best season that year in general. So coming into the playoffs, the Raptors, they were the second seed in the Eastern Conference. And on paper, this team looked like a team that can go all the way. The Toronto Raptors had a really complete team, in my opinion. You had Kyle Lowry at the point guard position, and he was still an all-star caliber player. You had Norman Powell. You had Marc Gasol, who's another really great player, and during that time, he was still considered a pretty elite center. You also had Pascal Siakam, who was still on the rise during this time and still improving, but he was definitely that second best player on that team. And you also had Fred VanVleet, who we all know was a dog. Serge Ibaka. You had Danny Green. You had so many talented players on this roster that it didn't make any sense. You had OG Anunoby. So many great players on this Toronto Raptors team that helped them win that year's NBA championship. They were a loaded team. Going into that year's playoffs, man, it was just going to be quite a run for them. And many people really didn't know if the Raptors were going to make it to the NBA Finals, but I definitely that year, they were my favorite team to watch, but simply because of how much depth they had on their roster, and you just dropped in Kawhi Leonard. As you know, Kawhi, he still load managed that whole year, but he was still really a great player for this team in general. They did everything they could to make him stay. But when he went on this run in the playoffs, this was arguably the greatest run we've ever seen in NBA history from a player. We all know that they took easy works of the first round series against the Magic. Then they went up against a pretty darn good Philadelphia 76ers team led by Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, JJ Redick, all these guys on that team. And they took them to 7 games. And that series was a series that Kawhi Leonard definitely had to carry that Toronto Raptors team in. In that series, that man averaged 34.7 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists in those 7 games against that Philadelphia 76ers team. He single-handedly put the Raptors on his back in that series, and I mean, his numbers just showed it. As we all know, in Game 7, he hit arguably one of the most iconic shots, the luckiest bounces in NBA history.
You got to be aware of the inbounder here if you're Philly.
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger? Fourth quarter points by Kawhi Leonard. And the game winner, 41 points.
To win that series and to help the Raptors go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Made that run even more impressive in the semifinals is that he averaged a field goal percentage of 53%. He was shooting a very efficient percentage overall. In the conference finals, Kawhi Leonard helped the Raptors for the first time in their franchise's history win that series. And in that series before it started, many people were wondering how the Raptors would do against that Bucks team, simply because of Giannis and how dominant he was that season. He won MVP that year. He helped the Bucks, beat one of the best teams in the entire NBA season that year. So going into that series, it's definitely going to be a tough one, but the Raptors did something so iconic that year, and was they established that wall, blocking Giannis from getting what he wanted in the paint. And they, because of that, won that series. And Kawhi Leonard even locked up Giannis himself. So, I mean, Kawhi just proved everybody wrong that year. Going into this NBA Finals, Kevin Durant, he got hurt, as we all know, and that was definitely going to be a huge blow for this Golden State Warriors team. I mean, during this point, the Warriors, they were kind of on their last legs anyway. Before that, once Kevin Durant got hurt and then Klay Thompson got hurt, the basketball gods were basically blessing Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors. And of course, they went on to win that NBA playoff series. And you have to give huge credits to guys like Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry for definitely stepping up in that series alongside Kawhi Leonard. And they helped get the job done. During that time, became just the third player in NBA history to win Finals MVP with multiple teams, joining Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and LeBron James. And Kawhi Leonard, he was definitely impressive in that series. He was just the fourth player in NBA history to average well over 30 plus points a game on a championship team while winning Finals MVP. He joins Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Shaquille O'Neal in this category, joining him with very elite company. Those playoffs, he had a true shooting percentage of 62% shooting mark, and he joins players who average 30 plus points per game while maintaining a 60 plus shooting percentage. He is the first player to win an NBA championship accomplishing that mark. Also had 4.9 win shares in those playoffs, and he joins Tim Duncan in 2003, who accomplished this, Dirk Nowitzki, and LeBron in 2012, 13, and 18. So many impressive stats about Kawhi Leonard's finals run and just his run in general in those years' playoffs. So looking back at what Kawhi Leonard did for that Raptors team overall, I mean, he came in and they really did bet all the marbles on Kawhi, and he got the job done for them. He helped them win their first franchise's NBA championship, and probably one that they won't get for another very long time. He came into Toronto and he just dominated. You can even make the argument, I mean, many people have said this before, that he was already the greatest Raptors player of all time in just his one season there. He really did change the entire landscape as well of how the NBA is today now. Changed the whole trajectory of how people viewed him during this time. Kawhi Leonard came in and he definitely showed and proved why he's still one of the best players in the entire world. And he did just that. And in that year, he was the best player on planet Earth. Ron down and Kevin Durant down, Kawhi showed why he is the best during that time. And well, you have to give huge props to him. And of course, now he's on this Clippers team, and well, they've not really been successful in the first 2 years. Hopefully when Kawhi comes back from injury, that this Clippers team can definitely take a huge step up and really do something this year. And for Kawhi Leonard, though, I mean, just looking back at that 2019 season, that's going to be the greatest season, regardless of if he wins another NBA championship or not, how many good runs he goes and has left in his NBA career. That year, he definitely proved why he was the best player on planet Earth that year. And I hope you guys enjoyed this brief video on Kawhi Leonard. I just wanted to reminisce back on the time of when Kawhi Leonard was on that Raptors team, man. It was definitely some of my favorite times watching basketball and seeing what all he did just during that time, man. It was just insane if you were an NBA fan watching this during this time. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more basketball content each and every single week. Have a great day. Peace.
What it do, baby?